Hello and welcome to the BYU Library Family History webinar. We're glad you could join us today. I'm Olivia Tuller and I'll be your host for this webinar. If you have technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box and I can address your concerns. You are welcome to use the chat box during the webinar for comments, insights, and questions. However, all questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Our next webinar is on May 25th with Alyssa Gamble. She will be giving a presentation entitled Naturalization in the United States. If you would like to access the previous webinar, please visit our webinar index on our website or search on our YouTube channel. All of our webinars are recorded and uploaded by the following Monday for your convenience. We also post links to recordings and other updates on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. For today's webinar, we are pleased to hear from Julia Anderson, who will be giving a presentation on getting started with African American research. Before we begin, here is a little bit about Julia. Julia Anderson has a master's degree in history with an emphasis on post-secondary education and is an accredited genealogist with a credential in the United States Gulf South region. She is a United States and Canada research specialist at the Family Search Library in Salt Lake City and teaches research and accreditation classes for Salt Lake Community College in their genealogy certificate program. She is also the owner and managing member of Anderson Genealogical Research, LLC. Julia has given presentations for the Family History Library, the National Genealogical Society, the Utah Genealogical Association, and the Texas State Genealogical Society, among others. She currently serves with the Utah Genealogical Association as its Summit of Excellence Conference Chair. And we will now turn the time over to Julia if she's ready.
All right, thank you so much, Olivia. So welcome everyone to Getting Started with African American Research. I'm super excited to be here with you this afternoon. My objectives today are to explain the standard process for African American genealogical research after 1865, which is the official year of emancipation and the end of chattel slavery in the United States. I will also demonstrate 5 success strategies for locating your ancestors in historical records. And then I'll introduce some helpful resources available to you for free on familysearch.org. The basic research process for African American research after 1865 is the same for all genealogical research and has 5 key components. They are to gather known information, choose a research goal, find new information, evaluate the new information, and finally, share the new information. I will be discussing these components throughout the class and breaking them down into steps you can follow in your own research. The first component of the research process is to gather. This means to start collecting information and documents you already have. Write down stories or family traditions you remember. Compile your photographs and family papers and include things like yearbooks, newspaper articles, and programs from special events. Next, ask your close relatives for stories and traditions they remember. See if they have photographs or family documents they will be willing to share. Ask if you can make copies or take pictures. Then, after checking with your immediate family, reach out to more distant relatives. You never know what genealogical treasures might be hiding in someone else's attic or closet. So, in the gathering process, what exactly are you looking for? Photographs are wonderful heirlooms that can tell you a great deal about your family. They are easy to share and help spark memories that may help you to uncover family stories you had never heard before. Family Bibles are excellent finds because families often kept records of births, marriages, and deaths within their pages, and they were usually passed down from generation to generation. Family letters can give you a glimpse into your ancestors' lives and how they communicated with their friends and relatives. Even if your ancestors were unable to read or write, they could still send and receive letters. Newspaper clippings show how your ancestors interacted with their community. Many people saved articles like obituaries, death notices, and announcements for other vital events like births and marriages. Birth, marriage, and death certificates can also be found in family collections. They contain helpful and important information for genealogy research because they include dates and places for vital events and list relationships of family members. Families also kept copies of church records, such as certificates for christenings or communions. This is an example of a funeral program. These can be filled with family information and may be among your family's documents. Notice that this one has several family photographs, names of pallbearers, the name of the funeral home, and dates for the decedent's birth and death. Some families had a tradition of keeping journals or diaries. These can give you especially personal insights into the lives of your ancestors as they wrote about their daily activities and special events. Don't forget to ask about family stories and traditions. These were often passed down by older family members, and although they may have changed a bit over time, they can provide valuable clues about your family heritage. Once you have gathered the information and documents you and your family members already have, the next thing you need to do is organize it. Use charts and forms, such as family group records, pedigree charts, research logs, and timelines. Many templates for charts and forms are available on the Family Search Research Wiki. From the Family Search main page, select Search and then Research Wiki in the drop-down menu. From the Wiki search page, type Use Appropriate Forms in the search box. In the table of contents, you can see the different types of forms available on this page. Number 2 is Family Group Record. The Family Group Record is a great way to record information about complete families, husband, wife, and children, with vital information for each person. The next type of form on the Wiki page is number 3, the Pedigree Chart. Pedigree charts are great for recording direct line ancestors like parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents with their vital information. The next form on the Wiki page I would like to discuss is the research log. Research logs are a sort of table of contents for all of your research on a particular topic, person, or family. They can also help you plan your research. They generally include the ancestor's name, your objective, also known as a research goal, the locality or the place where your ancestor lived, the date and location of your record search, which is the repository where you're researching, the description of the source, which is what record you searched with its citation, comments, which include details from each source, and nil or negative searches. You can also add a document number to help organize your records. The next type of form from this Wiki page I'm going to discuss is the Research Assessment Form. The Research Assessment Form is two-sided and looks like this. It has a place for you to put your goal, your beginning ancestor with identifying information, including spouse and parents, if those are known, other family members like children or siblings, any notes you may have about the research problem, research suggestions or records you want to search, and it includes a simple research log to keep track of what you have already searched and what you found. The last type of form I would like to show you is the timeline grid. If you search for timeline on the Family Search Research Wiki, this page on timeline grids will come up. It has several different timeline templates you can use in your research. Timelines are a great way to see your ancestors' life at a glance. Here is an example of a simple timeline for the Boer family of Kentucky and Arkansas. Timelines can be as simple or as complex as you want to make them. One reason I love them is because they help me see gaps in my information. In this case, I was able to determine the approximate year that this family moved from Kentucky to Arkansas by looking at the place for each event in the order it happened. After we have gathered and organized our information, the next step in the research process is to choose a research goal. The process for choosing a goal begins with asking some simple questions. First, what do you already know? For example, let's say we know that Jack Jefferson was born on the 15th of May, 1887 in Mobile, Alabama. The next question is, what do you want to know? Well, we want to know who were Jack Jefferson's parents. Using this information, we can now write a research goal. Find the parents of Jack Jefferson, who was born on the 15th of May, 1887 in Mobile, Alabama. Now that I have chosen a research goal, I want to prepare my research log. This is a simplified research log I created in a word processing program. I have put the name of my ancestor, Jack Jefferson, up here at the top. Just below that, I added my research goal to help me stay focused. Now that I have prepared my research log, I am ready to find new information. Finding new information is exciting and can be broken down into 3 steps. First, select the best records. Next, obtain the records. And then study the records. When selecting the best records, I need to consider these things. What records are available? Well, a good place to determine what records are available for the location I want to research is on the Family Search Wiki county genealogy pages, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. The next question is, what records will answer my research question? The Family Search Wiki record finder tables can help you determine this, and I'll show you that in a minute as well. And finally, what records are the most reliable? For this, you'll want to look for original sources and primary information. So here's an example of a Family Search Research Wiki county genealogy page for Mobile County, Alabama. You can see the name of it up in the upper left-hand corner. Here, you can see what years the county started keeping different types of records. You can also see if and when there was record loss and why. In this case, Mobile County had destructive courthouse fires in 1823, 1840, and 1872. There's not much more frustrating than searching for records that were never created in the first place or that burned up in a fire. Here's an example of the United States Record Finder table in the Research Wiki. It lists things I may want to find in my research, the best records to search, as well as additional records that might give me the information I need. If I scroll down to the section entitled Maiden Names and Family Members, then I can see that if I'm searching for someone's parents, the best records to search are vital records, church records, census records, probate records, and obituaries. Alternative records that might contain this information are Bible records, newspapers, and immigration documents. In selecting the best records, I mentioned that we want to look at original sources with primary information. An original source is one that was first created and is not a copy, transcript, index, or other derivative made from the original. Primary information is first-hand information from an eyewitness or participant in the event. Secondary information comes from another person reporting on what they heard through the grapevine. After you have determined the best records to search to solve your research problem, the next step is to obtain the records. To do this, I can look in several places. First, there are online repositories, such as FamilySearch.org and other internet sites. I can also look in government offices, such as courthouses, libraries, and archives. There are also private collections, such as those housed in historical and genealogical societies. And finally, I can also look in books and periodicals. Searching card catalogs is a great way to find records in different repositories for the right locality and time period. Many institutions have online card catalogs on their websites. Once I obtain the records, I need to study the record set. I want to look for indexes, and these can be separate or within the record. I then want to look for family members, and this would include parents, siblings, and even those with the same surname as I'm looking for. I want to be thorough and study the entire record and note any conflicting information. And I always want to record my results, both positive and negative. When I'm searching for these records, I need to record everything on my research log. Here's an example of what I recorded for one of my searches. First, I put the date of the search. Then I wrote down what I was looking for, or the purpose of my search. Next, I recorded the source I searched, including a full source citation. There are several different ways to record source citations, but no matter which way you prefer, the citation should always lead you back to the original source. I also took careful notes of everything I found in the record. The last thing I added to my research log was a document number for my own filing system. I always make sure to download and save each document I find and number them. This helps my research files stay organized. Once you have obtained and studied the records, the next thing you need to do is evaluate the new information. Ask yourself these basic questions. To whom does this evidence apply? What does it mean? Does this evidence fit with what I already know? Is there conflicting data? Can I really trust this information? And what clues does this give me for future research? These are just some examples of some questions you can ask as you evaluate the information you find on the records. Once you have analyzed and compiled your research and formulated logical conclusions, it is time to share what you have learned with your family. You can share your research in many ways, including posting the information with sources on public family trees, writing articles for family newsletters or genealogical publications, publishing the information on a blog, posting your stories on social media, and attending and sharing stories at family reunions. I have discovered that when I share information with my relatives, they more readily share information with me, and we all benefit from the exchange. In addition to that, working together brings us closer as a family and makes the work more enjoyable. Next, I am going to demonstrate 5 strategies for success in locating your African American ancestors. Success strategy number 1 is to go from the known to the unknown. You want to start with the most recent records and work back in time. For instance, I might start with my ancestor's death record, then search census records during her lifetime, then find her marriage record, and then at the end of my search, look for a birth record. It is also important to verify all family traditions and information received from others, including what is posted online or printed in any books. Success strategy number 2 is to search every available record for each of your ancestors' life events. For example, if I wanted to locate or verify death information for my ancestor, I would search for a death certificate, an obituary, a cemetery record, and a funeral program or funeral home records. This would give me a well-rounded picture of the events that happened at the end of my ancestor's life. Success strategy number 3 is to find all the known family members and their records. This will help you understand the family structure. Also, records of family members could have more information than the records for your ancestors. And siblings of your ancestors are especially important because brothers and sisters usually have the same parents and grandparents. Success strategy number 4 is to be aware of name changes. After the Civil War, many African Americans changed their names. Enslavers often shortened the names of those persons they had enslaved or called them only by nicknames. A man named James Robert Jones by his mother might have been called only Jem. After emancipation, choosing a surname was one of the freedoms African Americans experienced. Sometimes they chose their enslaver's surname for convenience, or they chose the surname of a family member's enslaver or a former enslaver. Others chose the surnames of famous people they admired. Be aware that they might have tried one name for a while and then changed to another name, or even switched back and forth between names on different records. Martin Jackson had previously been enslaved. In an interview in 1937, he explained how he chose his surname after the Civil War. He said, "The master's name was usually adopted by a slave after he was set free. This was done more because it was the logical thing to do and the easiest way to be identified than it was through affection for the master. Also, the government seemed to be in an almighty hurry to have us get names. We had to register as someone so we could be citizens. Well, I got thinking about all us slaves that was going to take the name Fitzpatrick. I made up my mind I'd find me a different one. One of my grandfathers in Africa was called Jackio, and so I decided to be a Jackson." If you were only looking for this man as Martin Fitzpatrick, it is unlikely that you would find him. Success strategy number 5 is to study the local history. Migration patterns can give you clues about where your family came from and where they went. Local laws will help you understand why your ancestors did certain things, as well as what records they might have created. Industry, and agriculture of the area can help you learn what your ancestors did for work and what their economic situation was like. Folk customs can explain where your family traditions began, and religious beliefs can give you more background on your family's lifestyle. Local entertainment is important too, as you can see from this photograph of an African American brass band. Be aware that historical records referred to your ancestors with terms that were common for the time period. These could be considered offensive today, but it is important to understand what they mean. B was an abbreviation for black. C, or COL''D, stood for colored. FPC was an abbreviation for free person of color, and some records also used FMC or FWC for free man or free woman of color. N, or NEG, stood for Negro. M, or MUL, was an abbreviation for mulatto, someone who was one half black. Q, or Quad, stood for quadroon, or someone who was 1/4 black. And Oct, or OCT, was an abbreviation for octoroon, or someone who was 1/8 black. Segregation was a real issue, even in record keeping. African Americans might have been listed in a separate colored register, the back of the register, or in the regular or white register. In segregated records, if your ancestor is not listed in the colored section, check the white section of the record. Not all clerks recorded events the same way. Here's an example of a colored marriage register. The entries inside do not refer to the individual's race and are much the same as the marriage records for the white members of the community. This is the corresponding white register. Remember, if you do not find your ancestors in the separate colored records, check the white records too. For the remainder of the presentation, I will be showcasing some key family search resources for researching your African American ancestors, beginning with some helpful information from the Family Search Research Wiki. The Family Search Wiki has many helpful pages for African American research. Some of these resources include the African American Genealogy Wiki page, African American Online Genealogy Wiki page, the Quick Guide to African American Records, Southern States Slavery and Bondage Collections, the African American Digital Bookshelf, records of the Freedmen's Bureau, and the Freedmen's Bank records. We will also be talking about the other relationship feature on Family Search, Family Tree. And these are just the very beginning of the many records that are available from the Family Search Research Wiki. Remember, to find the wiki, simply go to familysearch.org and click on Search in the top menu bar. A drop-down menu will appear, and Research Wiki is the choice on the very bottom. If you type African American into the wiki's search field, you will see many options for helpful articles. I will highlight just a few of them. The first page I want to show you is called African American Genealogy. This is a great starting place. It has links to African American online genealogy records and the Family Search community for African American genealogy research. Along the right side of the page is a column entitled African American Genealogy Wiki Topics with links to each of the topics. There are also links to articles about name changes, slavery research, and other unique topics. If you scroll down a little, you will see links to the state African American pages with resources on African American research for each state. Links to additional collections are included below. Lower on the page, you can see links to information on collections from the National Archives, articles on African American research methodology, and details on African American history. Even more information is included on the rest of the page. African American online genealogy records is another page on the Research Wiki. It includes links for online records, which are grouped by category, such as vital records, biographies, census records, church records, military, and newspapers. These lists are not exclusive to Family Search, but include links to collections on other websites as well. The Quick Guide to African American Records in the Wiki outlines methodology and search strategies for doing African American research. This is an invaluable resource for learning about record types and how to go about finding your ancestors. Next, we have the Family Search Southern States Slavery and Bondage Collections. These are categorized by state and include links to the records in the Family Search catalog. Many of them are digitized and are available for viewing online. The African American Digital Bookshelf has an extensive list of books regarding African American ancestors, historical context, and guidance to other resources. These books are all free to search online. The Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, often called the Freedmen's Bureau, was created at the end of the Civil War to assist formerly enslaved persons called freedmen and refugees. During the 7 years it operated, the Bureau created hundreds of thousands of records, and these are digitized and available on Family Search. They contain a wealth of information for those seeking African American ancestors. The Research Wiki has several articles about these records. One is this page on the Freedmen's Bureau record types. This article provides essential background information for those hoping to best use these resources. Check out the Freedmen's Bureau records on the Family Search Wiki. The next valuable set of records we will look at are those of the African American Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company records, also known as the Freedmen's Bank records. The Freedmen's Bank signature cards or registers can contain the names, ages, birthplaces, residences, employers, family members, and former enslaver and plantation of those who opened bank accounts. Here's an example of a bank card displayed on the Wiki page. The last resource on Family Search I will demonstrate is the Other Relationships feature on the Family Search family tree. In the course of my genealogy research, I discovered 2 enslaved families associated with Robert Alexander Taylor and his wife, Mary Maria Woods, in the state of Texas. Mary's probate file named the enslaved persons: one Negro woman named Emily, aged 30 years, and her 3 children, Eugene, Harriet, and Texana; one Negro man named Elijah, age 43, and his wife Dilsey, age 45, and their children, Elijah, Anne, Louis, Mary, Elizabeth, Julia, Huey, and Charles. All the children's ages were also listed. I wanted to record these individuals in the Family Search family tree, but I didn't know their last names, if they had any. All I knew was their relationship to each other and the identity of their enslavers. The new Other Relationship feature on Family Search family tree was just the tool that I needed. First, I went to the enslaver, Robert Alexander Taylor's person page on Family Tree. Then I scrolled down to the bottom of the screen to the section called Other Relationships. I selected Add Other Relationship. If you click on the little down arrow in the relationship box, you'll get a drop-down menu listing several different options. From that menu, I chose enslavement. Other choices are apprenticeship, employment, godparent, household, neighbor, and relative, to name a few. On this page, I can add any information I have about the individual. Here you can see I added Emily, a female who is deceased and who I estimated to have been born in about 1827 based on her age in the probate record. The computer did not find an obvious match for Emily in the tree, so stated there was no match found and gave me an option to create person. Next, I got a confirmation screen. It looked correct, so I clicked on Save. Once I saved the information, it showed up on Robert Taylor's person page under the enslavement category. This is what that section looked like after I added all the enslaved individuals mentioned in Mary's probate file. Next, I was able to use the personal ID numbers generated by Family Search to connect the families. On the left is Emily with her 3 children, and on the right are Elijah and Dilsey with their 8 children. This other relationship option is a great tool we can use to connect families even when we don't have the surnames or other details genealogists usually use to identify people. As we find additional information, we can add that to the tree, eventually connecting families across generations. This concludes today's presentation on getting started with African American research. I have explained the research process, demonstrated 5 success strategies for locating your African American ancestors, and introduced some helpful resources available on Family Search. Now I'm going to turn the time back to Olivia and see if anyone has any questions on getting started with African American research. I would like to note that if you have a specific research question about African American research or anything, you can sign up for a 20-minute free virtual consultation with Family Search. And to do that, just go to the Family Search Library Facebook page or web page, which is familysearch.org/library, and then click on Research Help, and that will walk you through the process. So we'd love to help you with your questions. Someone asked in the chat, Teresa, would you expand on the concept of NIL? So some people say that NIL stands for not in location. Others say that it's a corruption of like the null set, meaning 0. But basically what it means is that you did not find what you were expecting to find in the place that you looked. So you can call it a nil search or a negative search. The reason those are important is because it can help guide you to finding other records if something is not where you expected to find it. That's a great question.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you will join us for our next webinar, which is on May 25th with Alyssa Gamble. She will be giving a presentation entitled Naturalization in the United States. A recording of this webinar will be made available next week. You can view that on our YouTube channel or on our website. If you have any comments or questions, you can always email us at fhl_webinars@byu.edu or follow Facebook and Twitter. Thank you and have a wonderful week.